be a blast, and my gosh, can we not wait for that one.
Winner could be, I mean, these racetracks, you never really know what's going to happen. I'm predicting probably more cautions than what we're used to. This series has been exceptionally clean this year. The drivers have done a phenomenal job keeping yellows to a minimum. But in the words of Denny Hamlin, this is short track racing. And let me tell you, I think we're going to see some bumping, some rubbing. I mean, we are getting into the playoffs here. We're getting really close to, winding this season down. Patience is wearing thin. And, if you're going to bump somebody, no better place to do it than a track like Richmond. So we'll have to see. And if we get those cautions, then, of course, that's going to open the door to anybody coming into and maybe sneaking in a win if they put themselves in the catbird seat. But, of course, you got to survive. If you want to win this race, you want to put yourself in the catbird seat, you got to make sure you're one of the drivers not getting involved. So what's the strategy there, Jordan? How do you keep your car in good shape? And what do you do to make sure that you're kind of pacing yourself throughout this 200-lap event?
Man, that's a hard one. Like you said, it can be a very rough and tumble race. Action can happen very quickly in front of you. Really, the safest place to be is in the lead. You want to try to lead as many laps as physically possible. We saw it earlier the year at Martinsville when we had a caution-filled race there, that being in the lead is where you wanted to be. Earlier the year at Richmond as well was about the same thing. Wasn't as many cautions earlier this year at Richmond, but being in the lead was the safest place. Very little chance to get caught up in anyone else's mess that way. Lap traffic comes around quick, though. So just because you are in the lead doesn't mean you are away from the traffic at all times, because you're going to catch the guys in the back of the pack very, very quickly.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the lap traffic. That is something that's going to be really important here. And it's kind of difficult to be a lapped car at a track like this. You got to think about how in these corners, you've really got 3 usable lanes, but really only one where the car feels good. I know a lot of drivers are going to love the bottom lane here, especially early on. And if you're that lap car trying to make that high line work and trying to stay out of the way of the leaders, that car can really get out from underneath you. I mean, if you're the lap car, what's your move here? I mean, how do you try to make sure that everything stays clean when you got cars coming up behind you?
This late in the season, the lap cars really should be moving to the outside as best as possible. Backing down the corner entry a little bit, communicating with the leaders that, hey, I'm going to be backing off early. I'm going to be taking the outside. Take me low. The last thing you want to do as a lap car that has no playoff implications is cause a playoff implication. You don't want to mess up one of these playoff drivers that might be running up towards the front and ruin their chances at moving on to the next round.
Absolutely. And as you can see a car right there on the scenic cam sliding through that infield grass, there is a little bit of runoff, which is something that, we don't have at a lot of short tracks, but here at Richmond, on the front stretch at least, if you get a little bit loose, if you spin out, there's a little bit of area that you can use to try and catch yourself and kind of save yourself of any damage. So that may be something that comes into use later. But, with this league being a fixed setup league, how do you think that's going to affect the style of racing here? I mean, we got the high horsepower package, low downforce, but everybody's got the same setup. They got the same car coming into tonight. So what kind of racing should we expect to see here?
We're going to see tight racing here. We saw it here in the springtime. We've seen it in races past here as well. The field stays bunched up really tight. Qualifying, as we see getting started right now, is going to be very tight as well. The field's only going to be separated by maybe half a second. It's going to lead to tempers, like you mentioned earlier. Tempers are going to flare. There's going to be drivers that get impatient towards the end of the race. They're going to start getting the bumper to each other. And you might even see payback for a earlier season incident that someone might still have fresh in the back of their mind that they want to get out of the way now. And this is perfect track to try to do it at.
Absolutely. Race car drivers, they say race car drivers are supposed to have short memories because you can't really hold on to things too long. You got to move on week to week. But, I don't ever find that to be the case. In fact, race car drivers tend to have the best memories out of anybody I ever met, because I tell you what, you do something to a driver 10 races ago, and 10 races later, they're in your rearview mirror, and you're thinking, is he looking for revenge? Does he remember it as well as I do? And you're just hoping that he doesn't, but usually he does. So you're absolutely right. As it looks like we have qualifying underway. We've elapsed about a minute on the board. Some drivers have posted times. Jamie Moore in the number 82 machine, he's currently sitting on the pole, although he just got dethroned as I say that. Something to the tune of just a few hundredths of a second. Thomas George in that 88 machine moving up the running order to the pole. Thomas George has had some pretty good qualifying efforts this year. In fact, I would say he's pretty much had a solid year in general. Good qualifying efforts, generally running up front. This could be his night. I do know he tends to like these short tracks. I've broadcasted a couple other short tracks for this league, and I've noticed Thomas George, he's pretty proficient here. Tyler Saville currently sitting third behind the second place Jamie Moore. He's only about a hundredth of a second behind Jamie. Grant Brown in that number 15 sitting fourth. Michael Chrobok sitting in, I believe, fifth there. I'm sorry, he's in sixth. Woody Mahan jumps up to fifth. So the number 84 machine looking for a good night, still looking for a bit of redemption. And I'll tell you what, I got to ask you, Jordan, some tracks, the first lap is going to be a little bit faster in qualifying just because your car's a little bit freer, the tires are cold, you have a little bit of rotation, and sometimes you want the heat in the tires. That second lap is what's going to be faster. What do you think the qualifying experience is going to be like here? Are you banking on that second lap?
I think they're definitely banking on that second lap. I did a couple practice laps earlier in the Server First Open, and that's what it felt like to me, was the second lap was going to be your money lap. The first one seems like you're knocking the newness off the tires, trying to get the heat in them, like you mentioned before. Second lap is where the money is. The car has the most grip that you're going to get out of it, and it's your best chance to rip off a really fast qualifying lap.
Absolutely. Now, Drew Carroll has driven to the top of the board with a 21.655, the only driver in that 21.6 bracket. Second place, Thomas George, still with a 21.716. Now, I believe Thomas has posted both of his laps, so his time is pretty much set in stone. If anybody continues... Oh, there we go. New pole sitter, number 29, Will Warstler, to the top of the board. I'm sure Nikki is pretty ecstatic about that, and she's going to be nervously watching that scoring pylon from the grandstands. Or actually, well, technically she owns the team, so she'd be watching from the VIP box somewhere, hoping that Will Warstler can hold on to this top spot at the moment. But noticing a few drivers that have not gone out yet. Among those, Johnny Avila, who was disconnected due to connection issues. And according to the race server chat, he is now back in the session. So he has about 6 minutes, give or take, to turn a couple of laps, see what he can do in terms of qualifying. It's going to take him a minute to load in, I'm sure, but he should have ample time to get in there, turn that lap. One thing I'm noticing now, though, is, I'll tell you what, Scott Eckrich has not posted a lap, Jordan. That's kind of interesting.
That is interesting. This is one of the tracks that I'd expect Scott to excel at. This is high horsepower, the package he seems to really like, and not seeing him post a time yet is kind of surprising. I don't know if he has a different strategy than everyone else. Maybe try to start at the back and work his way up through, have a little bit of fun with it, or as we see him going around, rolling out on the track right now and making a liar. I mean, that's fantastic.
Maybe just waiting for the track temp to change just to see if anything happened, or just letting the other drivers go out and turn their laps and seeing what he can do. As now we're watching the number 37 machine make his way around the track, and there's the Beef Jurski's cheesecake machine, Adam Jurski, that 69, making his way around. I wondered if he was going to post a time, and I believe he has, as now the 70 is going to finish his out lap. And again, I think we're going to see what we see pretty much every week. A lot of these drivers are going to be staying out well after posting their qualifying times, simply to get the extra practice, simply to get laps under their belt. Because I'll tell you what, I think tire wear is going to be a huge factor here. And if they can just go on a 10, 15 lap run and get a feel for how their car is going to start to change, it's pretty invaluable information. I mean, the car, in my experience, and maybe things have changed, but last time I raced around Richmond, it seemed like the car got real tight once those tires started to wear. And coming out of turn 2, that was always the trouble spot because the banking goes away. The car wants to drift up and out of the corner, and that safer barrier on the outside, it wants to reach out and love you.
That it definitely does, and this is one of those tracks where you gotta fight both corners. Coming off turn 2, like you mentioned, you get really tight really quickly. You come off turn number 4, and it's almost the exact opposite every single lap. You're gonna get loose as you try to roll down the front straightaway. That's not really all that straight here. You're always turning left going down the front straightaway, and a lot of guys are gonna fight a loose condition off turn 4, no matter what point of the race you're in, and there's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, like you mentioned before, they're all fixed setups, so there's no way to adjust that out of the setup. You're kind of always going to be fighting the tight condition off of turn 2 and always fighting the loose condition off of turn 4. We see Scott Eckrich has made his time top of the charts with a 21.595 right now.
Yeah, Scott was able to get ahead of Will Warstler there with a 21.595. So, this is really surprising me, the separation we have in lap times. We've seen races, Jordan, where the top 10 are separated by less than a tenth, but here we are with one driver that has a 21.5, 3 drivers that have a 21.6, a handful of drivers with a 21.7. We're just seeing some separation here. And I think it goes to show this is a difficult track. Normally very, very close lap times in terms of competition when it comes to qualifying. Some of these drivers have not quite found the speed, and some of these guys, they seem to just to have, kind of adapted to this track and figured it out really quickly.
Yeah, I'm talking to a lot of guys before this race even started today. They're really excited to get to this downforce package, high horsepower, low downforce. It really puts the car back into the driver's hands. You're not so much relying on the draft, trying to get a run at all point in times. They're really excited to be able to wheel the car like you kind of used to be able to, and I think it's showing with the lap times that some guys are going to excel at this a little bit better than others.
Absolutely. I mean, the drivers have always said, when you have more horsepower, it's a driver's car. It's not about what can the car do. It's about how far can the driver comfortably push it. Where is the slip angle? Where can you really get the edge of the car's limits, and who can hang on to it? And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And a lot of these drivers doing a fantastic job in qualifying, but again, we're just seeing a few that they've got it figured out, and that's never a fun thing to see as a competitor when you look up on that scoring pylon and you see that one guy that's got an extra tenth on you, and that might not have even been his best lap. Maybe there's more in the tank. Maybe he's going to figure something else out as the race goes on. He makes some brake bias adjustments. Things like, actually, I don't think they can do that in this league. I apologize. But if they figure the car out a little bit more, figure the track out, things like that, they might get a little bit quicker, and you're just kind of nervous. You're like, man, that dude's got it figured out, and you gotta hope that you can get up close to them, watch their car, see what they're doing, and learn from them the best that you can.
Yeah, one thing I was doing when I was always racing was trying to chase down Scott as many times as possible during practice. He always seemed to have, especially these high horsepower tracks, figured out. And the more laps you turn behind him, the more you realize, oh, well, he's doing something different here, he's doing something different there. And you can even learn what you might be doing different that might be actually a little bit better for you and try to incorporate it. Most time I never was able to click up a lap like Scott was, but you could usually gain about half a tenth just by following him for a few laps in practice.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much you can learn from the competitors. And that's one thing that I love about fixed setup leagues like this is, sometimes, especially in open setup races, you look at a guy that has an extra 2 tenths, 3 tenths, and you think, well, is that the driver, or did he just find the hot ticket setup? And you can watch him driving, and maybe he's doing the exact same thing you're doing. It's just that his car is a little bit quicker through the center of the turn, or maybe he can just drive it in a little bit deeper because his car takes it. But in a fixed setup race, if somebody's faster than you, they're just flat out driving you. And that sounds like a bad thing, but it's not, because that means you can watch them and you can learn, and you can basically, iRacing gives you all the tools to go in, even in their cockpit view, see what they're doing with the steering wheel, see what kind of inputs they're giving these machines. And if you can watch that and you can take notes, then pretty soon you're going to be that guy that's at the top of the board. And what that does is it promotes this ridiculously close competitive environment, because the skill ceiling is so high, and it just keeps going up and up and up the more these guys learn and push one another throughout each race. It's really awesome to see.
Yeah, it definitely is. That's one of the reasons why originally I joined a league like this. Was a lot of guys don't have the time during the week to be able to put in the time to build a setup that might be 2/10 faster than the other guy, but they do have the time to spend taking an extra hour or so to go practice. And that's really all it takes to join a league like this is take a couple hours a week, take the fixed setup, try to practice with it, join a group of guys that might be willing to teach you what they're doing, and you'll be off like a rocket ship and running up front with these guys week in and week out.
Absolutely. And finally, qualifying has ended, and we are going to grid up on the track. Let's go ahead and, if I can get it pulled up, we're going to run through our starting grid. I'll go ahead and take 1 through 10, then pass it off to you. Sitting on the pole tonight for the Lucid Hue Richmond Playoffs 200, we've got Scott Eckrich in that number 70 machine, who you told me, Jordan, may not have even been here tonight. I guess he required a little bit of convincing to show up, and yet here he is on the pole, right alongside second place Will Warstler. Again, I'm sure Nikki is very ecstatic, although maybe a little upset with Will, saying, why couldn't you get that extra 10th for the team? Come on now. I don't own this team for second places. We own it for wins. Let's get up there. But a great effort by Will Warstler. I'm excited to see what he can do tonight. Row 2 is going to be Greg Evans and Drew Carroll. Greg Evans, again, looking for a good run this week. He's been on a bit of a bad luck streak, but if anybody can break that streak and grab himself a win, it would be the defending series champion, Greg Evans. Behind them, Johnny Avila, who had some internet issues the last few weeks, and it seemed like they only continued this week as the 70 rolls backwards on the straightaway. That's a little strange. But Johnny Avila and Thomas George are going to make up row 3. Allan Young, Jamie Moore, 7 and 8. 9 through 10 is going to be Tyler Saville and Brian Yaczik.
Starting 11th is going to be Grant Brown. Alongside him will be Woody Mahan in the 84. Adam Jurski and Corey Bent will make up the next row. Michael Chrobok, Troy Haight start 15th and 16th. Richard Fletcher and Pete Baskins will start 17th and 18th. 19th will be AJ Digby, the final car to take time tonight, and Jeff Ward will start 20th.
And looking a little bit further back to round out the rest of the field, we've got John Eckert, Mark Myers, Tim Knott, and Kevin Stone. Now, I should note the number 70 took a voluntary EOL. That moved up the entire inside lane. That's going to put Greg Evans on the inside of row 1, Will Warstler on the outside still. So Eckert wanted that EOL. It was a voluntary thing. He's going to be starting in the back. And the pace truck is going to go around one more time, I believe. The lights were off, although it didn't pull off. So that is a little... I guess that's how it works at short tracks. Our producer is telling me in my ear. So I guess that's just another thing I didn't know about iRacing. But we're going to be coming out of turn 2 for the last time under this pacing, at least. And these drivers, man, they got to be anxious. I think the start of these races is always the most stressful at these short tracks because it's a swarm, man. You got cars everywhere, left, right, behind, in front, and really nowhere to go. And there's the kind of a sweet spot, 10-15 laps in, where you get a little bit of separation before you get to lap traffic, and you can kind of breathe for a minute. But man, those opportunities to breathe at these tracks are rare, and they are fleeting. As the pace truck pulls off, Greg Evans going to lead the field to the green, stacking up the field, waiting a little bit. And Will Warstler is going to get an almost equal jump on the outside, so they're going to go into turn 1 side by side. The number 63, Johnny Avila, right behind him. And it looks like the low line is going to prevail for Greg Evans in the number 2. He's going to get clear of Warstler. The 63 is going to think about slotting up into that outside single file lane, but he's going to stay down low. And early on, it's going to be your defending series champ leading here at Richmond.
Leading, he is trying to pad that points lead just a little bit more as we roll into turn 1 and 2 on lap number 2 here. Johnny Avila is actually the points leader right now. His win last week propelled him to the lead as we see trouble off with turn number 2.
That was the number 24 machine, and it looks like he's collected somebody else. That would be the number 82. And we're staying green, so Jamie Moore collected in that. Still no yellow flag. We're going to stay green. And that's going to cause a little bit of separation now. As the number 2, Greg Evans, continuing to lead the way. Will Warstler there in second. And there is the caution flag. I guess our graphic was a little off there. But the pace truck is going to collect the field. And now these drivers are going to have to do it all over again, Jordan. I mean, how stressful is that to survive one restart and then immediately see that pace truck come back out? Now you know you're going to be racked and stacked, and you got to do it all over.
It's definitely going to weigh on these guys' mind. You just saw a playoff driver with trouble off of turn number 2 instantly. That's weighing on everyone's mind. We see 2 drivers actually loose on turn number 2. The 82 kind of followed the 24-foot tracks, and that's going to weigh on everyone's mind. You don't want to have that happen to you early on, and you're wondering, is it going to happen to the guy that's in front of me, and is he going to shoot back up the track? That's the last thing you want to see.
Yeah, there's very little room to escape on that backstretch. The front stretch, you have a little bit of runoff, but right here in this situation, if he'd come up the track a little bit further, that could have been disastrous. As you can see, the 82 sliding over there as well, and that's that looseness that you mentioned. Cold tires. The cars are going to get tighter and tighter and tighter as the run goes on, but we were on lap 1.5. These tires were still cold. They're still going to get loose out of that corner, and it's so easy for the car to get away from you as we ride on the hood cam here. Coming out of the corner, you can see just that little initial snap as the 24 spins in front of him as well. A little bit of a kiss there, but I don't think too much damage for either of these drivers. But that's going to be almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, Jordan, because the more we pace, the longer the tires are going to stay cold, and the longer the tires stay cold, the harder it's going to be for these guys to navigate this track.
Yeah, that it is. If I was these guys right now, I'd be trying to get as much heat as physically possible in these tires. You obviously don't want to wear them out. You don't want to cause extra tire wear, but you're going to want a little bit more heat than what you got in them right now. Luckily with iRacing, they have made it now, so you can put heat in the tires under caution. But at the same time, that can hurt you. Like I mentioned, you don't want to over scrub them and then start wearing them out to the point that they're going to be useless here 15, 20 laps into the run.
Absolutely, and another reason you definitely don't want to put any additional tire wear on your set of tires. I was told by our resident information guy, AJ Digby, that we only have 3 sets of tires on pit road tonight, and we got 200 laps of excitement. So I know 3 sets is enough. If we were to stay green, it'd be more than enough to get through our runs and get to the end of the race, and maybe even have 2 left over. But we keep seeing these cautions. It's going to be a chess game at trying to figure out when to utilize those 3 sets.
Absolutely, it will be. Putting that last set of tires on is going to be key. You want to have the freshest set of tires with the latest run, and if it's trending that there's going to be a lot of cautions here, you might wait as long as physically possible to try to put that last set on to try to outsmart the other drivers.
Absolutely. One car that may be wearing out its tires tonight is the pace truck as he makes that hard left turn, and there goes Greg Evans in that number 2. He gets a great start this time, a lot better than the first time. I gotta wonder if maybe he learned from that initial start and realized, all right, I gotta get the jump on these guys a little bit sooner. If I stack up the field, they're just gonna go with me. So we now have another yellow flag, it would appear. I'm being told we have another yellow flag, although on my end, I'm seeing that it's still green.
Yeah, it's still green on my end as well. I don't see anyone spinning up quite yet.
We apologize just a little bit, but we've had some graphical issues. We're having a lot of technical issues tonight, so we do apologize if you can bear with us here. But yeah, it is still green. That is our apologies. Number 27 making a move on the 63, and it looked like, whoa, the 27 a little bit sideways coming out turn 4. Just like you talked about, Jordan, man, coming out of turn 4, you're going to get so loose that banking starts to go away. You're still turning left, and I think that's the biggest thing, because when you have to keep the wheel turned left out of the corner, what you're doing is you're pinching the geometry of the car. You're making it naturally want to just spin in that direction. And it's really hard to get the proper exit angle with how oddly shaped this track is, how cold these tires are. It's just a lot of things that add up to a recipe for disaster.
That it definitely is. It's the one thing that every time you come here, everyone mentions coming off of turn 4 is the hard spot. And you could practice 100 laps, doing it 100 laps the exact same way, and it might jump randomly 5 times out of the 100 laps you're doing it, and you can't do anything about it. It's gonna jump, and when it does it, you're just gonna be able to try to catch it like we saw the 27 do. As we see these guys running side by side right now, that's one of the hardest things to do at this track, is run side by side for multiple laps with somebody. Because like you mentioned, you are pinching the car down more than you really need to. Absolutely,
and the joy of driving in the live stream chat saying, hang on to it, Drew. Well, he's hanging on to it. He's driving that thing, man. We know Drew Carroll. We know that he's a driver. So we're gonna, we'll keep an eye on him. He's gonna keep himself in the fray, even if he gets a little bit sideways. On board now with the number 27 machine as he is battling it out with Thomas George, who had a really good qualifying effort tonight. And I tell you what, like I said, there's been so many weeks, Jordan, where that 88. George has just had so many phenomenal runs where you really think this is the week, this is where he gets the win, and it just hasn't quite come to fruition the last few weeks, but it just looked like any week now his time is coming, and right now he's looking strong. He's fending off the number 27. He's staying right there with the 63, And, all of these guys kind of running or trying to chase down Will Warstler and Greg Evans, who, by the way, Greg Evans is starting to get out to quite a lead. 0.8 seconds, 14 laps into this event, 0.9 now as they run. So I got to ask Jordan, I know we have the low downforce package, and we do have high horsepower, so aero isn't quite as big of a factor here, but, whoa, we got the number 9 going around, and that's going to be a caution. And while we dial up the replay, I guess I'll finish up my question. How important is clean air at this track?
Clean air is going to be key. You see it right now, Greg Evans being able to walk away as we see the replay of the incident. It looks like the 14 got a little bit loose off of turn number 2, collected the 9 to hard into the inside wall. Clean air is going to be key, though, back to that point. You see Greg Evans starting to walk away from the field a little bit. You might have low downforce, but it's also going to weigh on the nose a little bit of the car. It's going to weigh on the balance of the car. If you have someone in front of you, it's going to be a lot harder to try to make a pass on him. It's a lot harder to try to make a move on him. Great move is on the replay of the 70 by Scott Eckrich to avoid that wreck right there. You don't want to be stuck behind people all night long. It's just going to make your life that much more miserable.
Now this is going to be a camera shot right here, riding along board with Scott Eckrich in the number 70. You can see the 14 a little bit loose, near contact there, but he is going to drive through the smoke, Days of Thunder style, and keep himself clear of any damage and any harm. What a move. That was quick thinking. He went high, the car came up high, so he dove back down low. I can't describe how difficult it is to make those kind of abrupt movements that the 70 made and not spin out yourself. We saw in real life last week, Kyle Busch made an abrupt move to avoid a wreck and spun himself out. Scott Eckrich just made 3 or 4 abrupt moves consecutively, and he kept it pointed in the right direction.
That he did. It's just a testament of how good of a driver Scott Eckrich really is when it comes to these short tracks and even any track. Like you mentioned, making a move like that, even the pros in real life can't hold on to it, and he just showed that he can make 3 or 4 moves and keep it glued to the track. So props to Scott for staying out of that wreck, keeping it straight, and being able to continue on tonight. Going back to that wreck, though, big playoff implications for the 14 AJ Digby.
It really is. He's definitely got some damage from that. I'm not sure it's going to be race ending, but getting damage this early on, we're only on lap, I believe, 16 now. So he's got 170 some odd laps remaining in this event for that damage to hold him back that he's going to have to try to overcome. So it's going to be tough. He does have, the flip side of that is that he does have plenty of time to try to get some of that damage fixed, but you know as well as I do, you can't always get it all repaired. Sometimes there is damage that you cannot get beat out of the body, out of the, maybe a little bit of engine damage as well. And we're just going to have to see how it affects him. But, he needed a good night tonight. He was definitely coming into here hoping for a good points night, as most of the playoff drivers are. And that's just not the way you want to see your playoffs really start here in race 2 in the round of 12.
No, not at all. Especially when you're only 6 points above the cut line. That's not what AJ wanted to see tonight. That's going to make the rest of his playoffs a little bit more challenging. Got to try to salvage as many points as possible tonight and gain as many as you can next week and hope for the best.
Yeah, he does have another week, and, you never know. This playoff format, it's kind of designed to be crazy. It's designed so that you have comers and goers, people who, rise through the ranks suddenly, people who fall through them suddenly, and really until you get to that last cutoff race in any given round, you can't say what's going to happen. There is the win and you're in type deal, and that, of course, is the biggest wild card of all, but any one of these drivers could have a bad race as the green flag goes back in the air. Greg Evans with another huge jump in that gorgeous paint scheme. I love that number 2 machine. As it looks like the 63 Johnny Avila, he's going to go ahead and pass the boss man, Will Warstler, for P2. Warstler now fending off 2 rows of cars behind him as Drew Carroll is going to drive right up in front of the 88. He says, nope, you're not getting that lane. I'm not giving you the top line. I'm going to go ahead and throw a slider on you. We're going to be single file through this corner. It was a great move by Drew Carroll. And I tell you what, there's not many drivers in this league that have the momentum that Drew does. It seems like every week we talk to him in the interviews. He's always finishing on the podium, and he always says, just not sure about the track we're going to next week, just not sure about it. But then we get there, and he's running up in the top 3, the top 5, just having a phenomenal night, just carrying a lot of momentum. And this is the time of the season where you want to have momentum. Doing good early in the season, it's great. If you can get yourself a Daytona 500 win or a win in the first few weeks, that's great. But carrying momentum now, this is when it's more important than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately for Drew, he did come in late in the season, so out of the points battle completely. But to be able to build momentum up, the guys you're racing against, and get a solid footing for next season, I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get make his name very well known, which he's done already this season with a couple wins already. And what a better time to do it. Like you said, I mean, end of the season, you get a good footing, and you make a good solid start for the season.
And he's involved with such a good team, too. And, any driver on your team having good runs and figuring out the car, it doesn't matter if they're involved in the points battle or not. If they're gathering data and figuring out telemetry and they're showing you if your team what needs to be done to get up there and run, and the rest of the team who isn't involved in the points battle, they can use that information that you're gathering. And, of course, being a competitor on the track, if you can help your teammate out in any way, shape, or form, give them a good bump on again to get them out front, or maybe I'm not saying I would, or that anybody in this race would. I'm saying maybe throw a block every now and again to keep your teammate out in the lead or up in a good point position. That's something you can do. So he may not be in the points battle, but he is gathering a lot of good information, and again, just carrying a lot of momentum for that team. As the number 70 is on your screen there, you can see he is wasting no time working his way up through the grid. He got an EOL penalty. We started this race with over 20 cars, currently 23 cars on track. He started at the tail end of that, and right now he's running P12. So Scott Eckrich in that number 70, he is marching his way to the front. It's almost like he wanted to go to the back just to toy with these guys. He said, put me in the back. 20 laps later, I'm going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you got to lose? I mean, he's solidly in the points right now, even after a rough week last week that we noted on earlier. He still has enough points to have a little bit of a cushion. Why not have a little bit of fun with it if you know your car is that good?
Absolutely. I mean, a points cushion is one of the most valuable things you can have in any form of motorsports. It gives you so much freedom. It gives you freedom to try different lines. It gives you freedom to not worry about leading every lap or trying to get up front. And it just allows you, if you have a bad race, if you get knocked out of contention in a race, well, you got that points cushion to fall back on. So that's a luxury that Eckrich has afforded himself through just an absurd amount of phenomenal points weeks all throughout the year. I mean, really, of all the races that I broadcasted with you guys, I can only really recall one that Scott Eckrich had a bad day in, and that's it, which is a pretty insane track record for consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw him last week as well. One of the very few times that he's had a rough week, and we thought he wasn't coming back. It's really good to see him come back and continue on his points battle, because I think he can be one of the drivers to make the Final Four and have a contention at winning the championship. And if he would have missed tonight, it really would have taken him out of contention. Would have required a win next week, which he seems to. You remember the comment at the end of the broadcast last week? He seems very confident going into the road course next week that he'll be able to win that, and but it would have made it that much harder for him.
Absolutely. Now, we do have the Joy of Driving in the chat. He asked what happened to the tickers, and Carlos did answer him, but I want to add on to that, and I want to say that if at any point we have any more technical difficulties and there's something that you as viewers would like to know, whether it's where your favorite driver is running, if somebody's on pit road, or any other information that we may be able to provide, just go ahead and ask us, and we can try and look at our, the telemetry from our end and our iRacing feeds, and we can try to get that info out to you even if the graphics are not up or working properly. Again, it's been a night full of technical errors. Carlos has been putting up with quite a few nightmares, and we were lucky to get this broadcast started on time. So, well, there we go. We have a picture of a Ferrari F1 car, just to really show the technical difficulties that we're having. I'm not sure how that popped up on screen, but oh man, it's a fun night, Jordan. We're having fun up in the booth.
We definitely are. Poor Carlos over there, like you mentioned, he's been working tirelessly since I got here about half an hour before we went live, and the poor guy's been struggling a little bit to get everything working correctly, but all the props to him. He's doing everything he possibly can. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we get it ironed out as the night goes on.
Absolutely. As the drivers have kind of single filed out, and I gotta admit, Jordan, I'm a little surprised at how calm this has been. Now, really the only incidents we've seen have not been a result of aggression. It's simply been a result of cold tires. And now that the tires are starting to heat up, they're starting to wear, and the car is getting tighter, these drivers are not really pushing each other. I mean, they're making moves, but the passes that we've seen have been so incredibly respectful. We're not seeing much pinching or blocking. If somebody gets the line and they go to make the move, then the driver they're passing pretty much moves up a lane, gives it to them, and lets them make their attempt at it. So very respectful racing early on. Are you as surprised by this as I am? I
am, and I'm not. We got a really good group of drivers here. They all they're race car drivers. They'll show each other respect, especially early on in a race. Like we mentioned before, there's been some incidents throughout the season that a few drivers probably haven't forgotten. And like I mentioned, this is one of the tracks that they might try to show those aggressions a little bit more. But early on in the race isn't the time to do it for anybody. You don't want to take yourself out of a 200-lap race on lap 20 over something silly. But if it comes down to it later on in the race, I think you're going to start seeing the bumpers might start flying to gain a position or two, especially for the playoffs drivers that really have to try to gain some positions here. There's 4 drivers currently sitting outside the cut line. I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a slight desperation move.
You are absolutely right. And, you mentioned just how great the group of drivers we have here is. And I just have to agree. And I know we say this a lot, and I'm not saying this out of some sort of bias. I'm kind of an outsider when it comes to this league. I show up and I broadcast, and that's about it. But as a broadcaster, man, I love this group. They're so respectful. They're so talented. And they just always put on a great show. You don't tune into the sim racing group here, or the Sim Racers Club, I apologize, and expect a demo derby or expect a wreck fest. You always expect some top-of-the-line racing out of these guys, and you always get it. So that is one of the reasons that I love this league. I love broadcasting for them. And, of course, watching the races back. These guys just do a phenomenal job. As Greg Evans not getting out to the lead that he had on the first run. He was out to about a second on that first run before the first caution there, Jordan. Now that lead is actually slowly starting to deplete. He had it up to 0.8. Now it's down to 0.7, sometimes going down to 0.6. Do you think it's possible that having that fresh air, that clean air, and driving the car a little bit harder, maybe Evans is burning his tires up a little bit quicker than Avila?
He very well could be. He also could be trying to save a little bit, knowing right now he's in kind of the catbird seat. I mean, he can control the pace of this race however he so chooses. He can keep Johnny back there at about 0.6 like we see right now, if that's what he so chooses to do. And that's kind of what I've noticed the last few laps. He seems to be back in the corners up just a little bit more than he was before. Out to a comfortable enough lead that he's happy where he's at, but keeping the drivers behind him in check.
Absolutely, he is keeping him in check, but man, that lead is starting to go. Well, actually, we say that as it kind of the ticker shoots up a little bit there. So, a couple of good corners for our leader, and he just got everything he lost back. So, interesting to see. But Johnny Avila, I'm watching how that number 63 is driving that car, and he's not taking it easy. He's getting a little bit sideways coming out of the corner. You can tell he's getting on the throttle as quickly as humanly possible. And I'm not seeing that out of Greg. So I got to wonder if maybe that yo-yo effect we're seeing where the 63 just closes in a little bit and then falls back. Perhaps that's just a result of Greg Evans taking it easy. And then he sees the 63 getting bigger in his mirror. He says, all right, now's the time to go. He goes ahead and pushes it for a lap or two. And then he calms down. I mean, that is something that you can do as a leader. You can afford to kind of take it easy for a few laps and really only push when necessary.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think back to talking to Johnny last week after his win, and this was one of the tracks he was coming to that he wasn't 100% sure about. He had a rough run here in the spring and wasn't 100% confident coming into this track. You see him running P2 right now. He might be overdriving it just because he's having such a good run. I've seen that happen multiple times for drivers, that they get up front early and they start overdriving the car a little bit too hard because they're at a track that they might not be 100% comfortable with, and they see they're having a good run and overcompensate a little bit and end up burning the right front tire off. Throughout the year watching Johnny, I don't think that he's going to totally toast the right front tire, but it's definitely a possibility.
Absolutely. And, it doesn't surprise me that Johnny is doing such a great job here at a short track. We know that Avila is a great road course racer. And in my mind, the way I've always looked at it, and maybe I'm just being silly, but I've always looked at short tracks almost as racing like road courses, because you have to know your braking zones. You have to know exactly how far you can drive it in. And there's just a certain level of finesse when it comes to the input that maybe certain other tracks don't require. You don't have to have that kind of finesse at your Atlantas or your Charlottes or your Texas, but at a track like Richmond, your steering input, how quickly you steer into the corner, how hard you steer in, where you get on the brakes, how slowly you roll into the brakes, how much you drag brake, whatever kind of technique you're using into the corner, there's a lot of finesse involved. And if there's a driver that has that, it's definitely Avila.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the short tracks like Martinsville here, even New Hampshire, all tracks that everyone will tell you it races like a road course, and they're 110% correct.
Absolutely. Now, we are experiencing some minor technical difficulties here. We're going to have to go to a radio style broadcast as Carlos is having a few more technical difficulties. This is kind of what he's been facing all night. And again, we want to thank Carlos for putting up with all of the issues that he's had. I know how frustrating these technical difficulties can be, and he is doing everything he can to fight through it. So a big thank you to Carlos as he works through this. In the meantime, we're going to go to, I guess, our best MRN impersonation, Jordan.
Yeah, throw another monkey wrench at me. I like it. Let's give it a whirl.
So Jordan, looks like we got Johnny Avila running at P2, and what I'm noticing is he's falling back a little bit. Greg Evans starting to pull away, as it seems like he finally flipped that switch. He's not taking it easy anymore, and we're still quite a ways away from any green flag pit sequences. That's something to keep in mind. We can go over 100 laps on fuel here, according to AJ Digby and what he told us before this race. So running order as they stand, Greg Evans, Johnny Avila in second, looking way behind Johnny Avila by something to the tune of 3 seconds is going to be Drew Carroll in that number 27. He will round out your podium, but he is under fire right now by Scott Eckrich in the 70, who, remind you, last time we talked about him, he was back there in 12th. Now he is knocking on the door of that podium, and he is trying to get around the 27, who is currently playing some pretty good defense. Back in fifth, Will Warstler. He started outside row 1. He's still running up front right there in the top 5, and he's actually not far behind Eckrich himself. So we got a bit of a 3-car battle as they work their way out of turn 2, down the backstretch. These 3 drivers trying to battle with one another, but the tires giving way. They're sliding, slipping, sliding everywhere as the tires are fading away. Thomas George there in 6th. Grant Brown 7th, right behind Thomas George. Brian Yaczik in 8th. Tyler Saville running 9th, and rounding out your top 10, Adam Jurski in the number 69. And all of the last 4 cars that I mentioned, all the way up to Thomas George, is pretty much 5 cars under a blanket. You've got Thomas George, Grant Brown, Brian Yaczik, Tyler Saville, and Adam Jurski, all 5 of those cars navigating the same corner, bumper to bumper. A lot of close action here at Richmond.
That there definitely is. I've been watching that 5-car battle for the last 5 or so laps, and a lot of drivers hanging it out off turn number 4. The 15 was one of the ones I've noticed the last few laps has been completely sideways almost off of every single corner. And if I'm the 55 of Brian Yaczik running right behind him, I'm getting nervous. Brian had a little bit of troubles last week, actually had a little bit of troubles the last few weeks with connection issues. And I don't want to get caught up in someone else's mess, especially if I'm holding on to my playoff hopes like that. And riding behind someone that's a little bit loose constantly, it's going to have me really nervous as the 88 of Thomas George starts to walk away from the 15 of Grant Brown a little bit. And watching Brian Yaczik, he's keeping a safe gap. He's making sure there's enough space that if something happens, he can react and not get caught up in it.
And that's a very important thing to have. I mean, when you're following each other so close to these short tracks, it's very easy not to have enough time to react. So Brian Yaczik doing a great job, just being a little bit defensive, making sure that he has that space, like you mentioned. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do with these tracks. Being fast is good, but making sure that your car stays clean and that you're still in the race by the time that checkered flag flies, that's even better. So a lot of these drivers doing what they got to do to get to the end of this, and like we kind of already mentioned, everybody just being super respectful. And a lot of that too is probably they know that there's no reason to push right now. I mean, we are still a little under 50 laps away from our first green flag pit stop. And tell you what, that is a lot of laps to put on tires. I mean, even though it's a short track, Jordan, tell the viewers at home what it's like to take one set of tires over 100 laps.
Over 100 laps is one of the hardest things you're going to do on the simulator. Is the tires are going to wear out. They're going to be working against each other every step of the way. You're going to be coming off the corner. One time you're going to be sliding the nose while the back end of the car is sliding. It just makes it almost impossible to even try to catch it when that happens, because the tires just don't want to work together. If you run into a situation early on in the race where, okay, the back end steps out a little bit, at least you have enough front end grip that you can catch it and make it work. But when you start getting into 60, 70, 80, even 100 lap runs like we could possibly see tonight, there's way more chance for a mistake because there's just nothing you can do to catch it.
Absolutely. It becomes so difficult to catch. I mean, it gets to a point where your car just wants to be in this constant 4-wheel slide. And of course, with the momentum and the direction that these cars are going, that 4-wheel slide often just wants to take you straight up to the wall. or depending on the angle, straight down to the inside wall. And it's never a good situation. Very tough. So these guys playing it a little bit conservative. I think that's one of the smartest things they could do as drivers. It's going to be, the way to keep yourself in the race and make sure that you're not abusing your car. Now, of course, as the laps wind down, as the race continues, I think that aggression level is going to go up for sure. But right now, we're on lap 63. We got plenty of time, and there's no reason to go out there and blow a tire or potentially spin yourself out as Evans continues to pull away. I mean, this long run speed out of the number 2, this is not surprising. Every time we see Greg Evans have a good run, it seems like the speed always comes in the long run. There's just something that he has figured out about how to save tires, how to take it easy, and how to manage his temps. I mean, people wonder, well, how do you save tires? Well, it all comes down to temperature. The higher your angle of corner entry, the more that you're cranking on the wheel and the faster you're going, the warmer your tires are going to get. And the hotter they get, the quicker they're going to wear. So it's all about keeping your tires cool. But not only that, but it's balancing the temps across all 4 tires. Because, of course, going in an oval, turning to the left, your right sides are always going to be burning up faster than your left. And typically your right front is going to burn quicker than your right rear once the car starts to get tight, because that's where the pressure is going. So you have to adjust your driving line and your angle to make sure that you're spreading out the heat and the temperature and the overall weight load of the car as evenly as possible. And if you can do that, you're saving your tires. And that's just something that Greg Evans has figured out.
That he has. That's honestly, at the end of the day, I think that's what won him the championship last year. He was the best driver at saving tires. He had the most success at making sure that at the end of the race that he had the most left in the car. And we're seeing that again today, starting to walk away from the 63 of Johnny Avila. That's what he's good at. He's good with these high horsepower cars, low downforce, saving tires, and just all out wheeling the car.
Absolutely. And it is a balance. Anybody can go 15 miles an hour and save their tires. But the key is figuring out what is the absolute fastest I can go while still conserving more than the next guy. And that's just the game that Evans plays really well. And Johnny Avila, phenomenal driver. I've noticed his speed often comes on the short run. You give him a late race restart, you give him, a short run before a caution, and he's going to be one of the fastest cars on the track. And that's always interesting to me because you got this dynamic right now where the guy in the lead, he's got long run speed. The guy in second, he's got short run speed. 2 completely different styles of driving, 2 different areas of a race where these drivers can succeed, and you're putting them head to head to see who can prevail.
Absolutely. And even thinking back a little bit further in field, as we look down through the running order, it looks like Scott Eckrich just taking over 3rd place from Drew Carroll. Scott's another one of those drivers, just like Greg Evans. You put him in a long run situation, and my money's on those 2. And as you mentioned, a short run, I might put my money on the 6-3 of Johnny Avila, or even the 27 of Drew Carroll. So there's 4 drivers, 2 take one route, 2 take the other route, and it makes for really exciting racing no matter where you're going.
Absolutely, and it really kind of makes it so the dynamic of the race changes even more if we were to get a caution flag. I mean, if a yellow flag comes out, suddenly those 2 drivers that have the short run speed, Drew Carroll and Johnny Avila, suddenly the cards are in their hands. They've got the advantage on speed, but they don't necessarily have the track position. So, it's a game of them trying to use that speed while they have it to get the track position, to make a move, strike while the iron's hot. And of course, on the flip side of that, if you're Eckrich or Evans, then it's up to you to play some defense, to throw the blocks, to make sure that you hold them off long enough that your long run speed eventually comes in, and then you can drive away from them. But until that speed comes, it's just a head-to-head battle, and it can be very, very exciting to watch. So a lot of interesting dynamics at play. And I want to say one standout this race that I've noticed, and we haven't really talked about it much, Grant Brown in the number 15. That is one driver who it seems like every week he does a little bit better. And now he is up there in 7th, not far behind Will Warstler for 6th. And he is really climbing through the ranks this race. It seems like there's something about Richmond that number 15 is having a lot of fun with.
Yeah, it is. I know. I think Grant's one of the few. I know we have a couple drivers that are real life drivers, have real life race cars that they run outside of the league as well. I know Grant is a big 8 Series driver out in Minnesota, and all short tracks with the Big 8 Series. It's a late model style series, so when we come to a short track, the experience on the late model side is going to pay off, and I think that's what you're seeing here right now.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, real life versus a simulator, there's always going to be some differences. It's never going to be a one-to-one experience, but there's so many things. I mean, iRacing has done a phenomenal job of just making it so that so many things do translate. You know, knowing how to brake, knowing how to get into the corner, knowing how to manage your throttle and the torque that these cars are coming out. It's all very, very real. I would say the only thing that's lacking versus real life is the feel of the car. I mean, you know, when you're in a real car, you can feel where the weight is shifting, exactly what it's doing underneath you. You don't really have that when it comes to sim racing, and that's something that a lot of real life drivers struggle with. But when it comes to this number 15, he doesn't seem to need that feel of the car, you know, that seat of your pants feel, because he is using that experience that he has from real life, and he's applying it masterfully as he navigates the short track.
That he definitely is, and it's good to see him have a good run. I know he had a rough run last week at Darlington, so he's mired back in the bottom of the point standings right now. But good run out of the 15. We see him in the 55 battling right now with the 11, just waiting patiently, as well as the 24 of Allan Young. They're just waiting to see what happens. You don't want to run up on someone that's already in a battle side by side like these two are, and enforce an issue that doesn't need to be made right now, especially only on lap number 78 of 200.
Absolutely. The caution flag flies. Not entirely sure what's happened yet. We will try and identify that, but that's going to change things, because now that's going to eliminate, I believe, one of the green flag stops, because I would say right now, with this caution coming out on 78, oh, yeah, Myers just got a little bit loose coming out of 4. The old tires gave way, slid down through the Toyota logo. Got her pointed in the right direction, though. He's all right. He'll be able to get back in this event. But, yeah, I would say they have to pit now, right, Jordan? I mean, there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way you can stay out at this point. I mean, you're going to have 80 laps on your tires, a couple caution runs in between there. You've got to come pit at this point. If not, you're just going to be a sitting duck and going to hurt yourself on the long run.
I agree. Everybody's making their way down pit road, including our leader, Greg Evans, in that number 2 machine. He is rolling on. We do have kind of a curved pit road. Luckily, we don't have to deal with the scoring and timing issues that you would see from a curved pit road in real life. Obviously, in real life, there are scoring loops around the pit road, and how they determine how fast you were going was how fast you get from one loop to the other. And of course, if the pit road is bent and you take the inside radius, well, that's a shorter distance. So even if you're going the speed limit, sometimes you'll get flagged as speeding. On iRacing, we don't have to deal with that. We have just a consistent speed check all throughout pit road. You know exactly how fast you're going. So it takes a little bit of stress off these guys. But Digby gaining a ton of track position, although probably not intentionally, Jordan. He may have missed his pit stall.
Yeah, as we see him stay out for another lap, so I'm kind of wondering if he missed his pit stall, or maybe he took 2 tires, or what might have happened here. But he stays out as we went by pit entrance again. So interesting to see what the A14 strategy here is. Did he take 2 tires to try to get some track position, hoping for maybe a shorter run this time, or did he just completely miss his pit stall and said the heck with it? I'm up here. I'm going to try to lead a lap, and I'll go in next time.
I'm not entirely sure, but if he did take 2 tires, I mean, what's that going to feel like, Jordan? To take 2 tires at a track like this when the left sides have almost 80 laps on them, what is that car going to do?
I would imagine you're going to find yourself like you're on an ice rink trying to drive a race car on an ice rink. It's not going to work very well. It's, as we see him pulling down pit road right now, so I'd say he was just trying to make sure he led that lap after missing his pit stall, at least get 1 bonus point out of it. But yeah, if you're going to bolt 2 right side tires on with 80 lap old left side tires, you're gonna think you're on an ice rink, and it's not gonna be a fun feeling if that's not what you're expecting.
Yeah, it does not sound fun, I'll tell you that much. I'm not surprised he went back down pit road, went ahead and got his car serviced. That's going to put him tail end of the field. Now, Digby, of course, remember, had a little bit of damage from a prior incident, so that may be one of the reasons that he has also decided to come down pit road and get some of that fixed up if he can. But I tell you what, this is going to be quite the restart. We've got the 63. He's going to be starting on the front row, I believe, for the first time. this race, and that's going to give him a great opportunity to try to get the jump on Greg Evans, see if he can get out front. I know we got a Johnny Avila fan in the chat. If you are rooting for the 63 right now, you're having a good time because he's having a wonderful race, as he normally does. Johnny's just, he's a heck of a driver. He's always out front. So he is going to have a real shot at getting the lead here. And, we haven't seen, Jordan, what the number 63 can do in clean air. We've seen what the number 2 can do in clean air, but that's about the extent of it. So maybe as the number 2 takes the high line, that's interesting. Okay, that threw me for a loop there, Jordan. Greg Evans opting for the high line on this restart.
That is a little bit different. We saw him get off to a really good start the last couple of restarts, so I think he's thinking if he can get out to a jump right now, he might mire the 70 car back behind the 63. I think that's what he's trying to do. I don't think he's so much worried about the 63 as much as he might be worried about the 7 as the green flag comes out and we see the 2 get a good jump.
A good jump it was. He's actually going to get clear of the 63, but the 63 dives it in a little bit deeper. It seemed like the 63 really had to get on the brakes to avoid contact. And coming out of the corner, they're going to be bumper to bumper. Now, getting into 3 and 4, this is a heavy braking zone. And the 63 is going to look up a little bit higher, dive it down low out of the corner. And man, that short run speed out of the 63, this is exactly what we were talking about. The problem is, it's so difficult to make a pass here. He goes up high. He says, all right, the bottom didn't work. He didn't open the door. We're going to take a look up high, and it didn't work. It actually lost him about half a car length. I got to ask Jordan, is there any way to make the top line work? Is there a point in this race where there will be enough rubber, where the tires will be at a certain stage in their wear, that the top line may be operational?
I think we're starting to see it. I think the 63 is trying it right now. It might be just a little bit too early with the fresh tires, but if you give this set of tires another 10-15 laps, I think you're going to start to see the top start working itself in. I noticed before on the last run there was a couple drivers that started inching their way up above that dotted white line on the bottom lane to try to get the second lane working, and the more drivers that do that, the more you're going to get that top lane to come in, and you're going to be able to use it. As we see, even right now, the 2 and the 63 aren't glued to the yellow line like they were in the first run. They're about a half a car length up, so give it another 10-15 laps, you might see 2 very viable grooves come into play.
And that would just make things a lot more exciting because as the leader, it's easy to block one lane. If you want to block the bottom, park the bus, and slow way down so they can't get you down on that yellow line, that's one thing, and I think anybody can do that. But it's a whole nother world when you're trying to block 2 different lanes that are both functional and that both carry a lot of speed. So that top lane opens up like you said it might. That is going to be one heck of a show. As we've already had some really good racing to lead up here. Johnny Avila just now starting to fall back a little bit. And again, I got to wonder how much of that is that dirty air. I mean, Greg Evans, he's had that advantage of being in clean air all night long. And I think, again, it's just, it's important. It's important to have that clean air. It's a huge advantage. And it's an advantage that he earned. He got out front, he took that lead, and he has not looked back. Now, Greg Evans, I'm sure, is driving motivated. He's been fairly frustrated this season. It seems like every time we've interviewed him, even when he's on the podium, he's just seemed a little bit frustrated, a little bit bummed out that he's not getting the number of wins that he'd really planned on getting going into the season. And now we're in the playoffs. This is go time. This isn't regular season Greg who's saying, all right, well, I'm a little frustrated. We're not doing as good as we want to do, but it is what it is. This is playoff Greg. And it's go time, and that's what we're seeing out of him. He's driving this car. This is how the defending champ drives. He's just doing a phenomenal job right now. Absolutely
is. And you mentioned he's definitely been frustrated as the season's gone on. This is not the season we expected to see out of him. And even talking to him, he said last season he thought he lucked into a lot of the races that he won. And this season he hasn't been able to get as lucky. But I don't think they were all just luck. There's a lot of skill involved to win that many races like he did last season. And he's definitely hungry for another win. As it's been far longer than I thought it would be that we'd see him in victory lane.
Absolutely. Now, I should note we're experiencing just a little bit more technical difficulties. Our view of the producer's feed has kind of gone away, so we're a little blind right now. We got our own iRacing feeds. We'll work through it as it looks like Greg continuing to lead the way. But we got some Johnny Avila fans in the chat, and it does not surprise me. Johnny, again, I mean, if you're going to build up a fan base, you just got to run really well week in and week out, and that is exactly what Avila does. So He's continuing to try to run down the number 2, and he actually seems to have closed that gap a little bit from a couple laps ago. So maybe under some pressure from the number 70 as well. I mean, when you got Scott Eckrich coming up behind you, Jordan, it's go time. You can't wait around. And I think that's kind of what's pushing Avila to stick so close to the bumper of the number 2, because he sees that blue number 70 in his mirror, and he knows exactly what that means.
Yeah, it means go time. You know when Scott gets to you, he's probably not going to put the bumper to you, but he's going to make it very hard for you to hold on to the position you're in. It doesn't really matter where you put your car. As we see the 63 on my feed, it looks like he's still trying that outside groove and might be working for him for right now. But when the 70 gets there, you got to do whatever you can to park your car directly in front of that 70 car and hold them up as long as you possibly can. Just watching the 3 of these guys here, the 2 running the bottom, the 63 seems to be the one that's trying to run the highest groove out of anybody through at least turns 3 and 4, and Scott Eckrich is almost in the middle, almost seems to be straddling that dotted white line.
Yeah, we're really seeing a variety in racing lines that I didn't expect. Sometimes Richmond, depending on the package that iRacing gives us at the time, depending on the package that NASCAR gives us at the time, Richmond can sometimes transform into this one-lane track, but as you pointed out, Jordan, we're just not seeing that. We're seeing so much multi-groove racing as we have a replay, and we're going to take a look at what happened there. That's the number 39 machine, Pete Baskins, just a little slideways out of turn 2. He's going to give it the old slap on the passenger side door. It's going to spin him around, but we stay green as we are now coming, I believe, out of turn 4. Oh, I'm sorry, that is turn 2. And, man, Avila getting really close. I'll tell you what, as we come out of turns 3 and 4 for lap 100, the halfway point of this event, let's go ahead and bring the noise. And we are back from our Bring the Noise, riding on board with Johnny Avila, trying to run down that pesky number 2 car, but just not quite able yet. As the laps wind down, we're at 96 to go, and the top 3 are under a blanket. This is the kind of racing that I love, Jordan. I mean, we're over 100 laps into this event, and the top 3 could be just put under a blanket.
Absolutely, they can be. 3 of the best in the league. Obviously, we have multiple drivers that can win on any given night, but the 3 drivers we've seen just about dominate the entire season are the 3 that are up front right now and completely under a blanket. Some of the most exciting racing we've seen all season long, honestly, as we're just past halfway. Most of the time, these races do get strung out just a little bit. It's a product of the respectful, clean racing that there is, but this is the closest I've seen a group of drivers for this long of a period of time.
Absolutely. Now, just an update on one of the drivers, Jamie Moore, who was involved in, I believe, our first caution. He is currently out of the session, so he's taking it behind the wall. He's in the garage, probably trying to find the hot dog stand or the soda stand not having a good night, unfortunately. It's always rough. Whenever a driver has a bad night, it's rough. But to have a bad night during the playoffs, even if you're not necessarily in the battle for the points lead or anything like that, you still want to make a good showing towards the end of the season, and it's rough to have a night like that.
Yeah, absolutely, especially to get caught up in an incident on lap number 1. You got to think if the 24 hadn't spun out in front of him, the 82 might have been all right, might have been able to get it straightened out. At least not maybe hit anything. I don't think the damage that either of those two cars occurred was race ending, as we see the 24 of Allan Young has rebounded to a solid 9th place right now behind the 15 of Grant Brown. As we see the 70 of Scott Eckrich get right to the back bumper of the 63, but spinning that early in the race can really deflate your sails and make it hard to rebound the rest of the race.
Absolutely, it can. It's just kind of, looking for the right word here, I guess, demoralizing, to practice so much, because these guys really do put in a lot of practice and a lot of time, and then to come out and just have something happen on lap 1. And you make a good point. Technically those two spins were unrelated, but I feel like maybe what happened to Jamie Moore, it could have been reactionary. Maybe he saw somebody getting loose in front of him, and he just made a bit of a twitch movement to try and avoid it himself, and that's what got him sideways. So just an unfortunate situation, but right now, Scott Eckrich working his way around the lapped car of the number 43, and he is really starting to pull away from Avila, and it looks like he's actually turning faster laps than the leader. So for the first time pretty much all night, we may have a driver that's going to make a challenge for it here against Greg Evans.
That's what it's looking like as the 70s turn the wick up just a little bit here as we're just got 89 laps to go. If I'm Greg Evans, I'm trying to figure out what I can do to try to get going a little bit more again. Have I burnt everything up? As he's trying to work on the lap traffic of the 04 Mark Myers right now, that's also not helping any, because even though Mark Myers is a couple laps down, he doesn't want to give up that spot. You don't want to keep following backwards, so the first person they're going to fight the hardest is the leader. Once you get to the second or third driver in line, they're going to roll over a little bit easier. As we see the 70 just getting right up on the back bumper of the 2 car.
Yeah, he is right there on the bumper. Indeed, this hood cam really gives you an idea of kind of the closing rate and the different driving styles as well. You can see the 70's entering the corner a little bit lower, and the number 2, he's entering higher, and he's slowly drifting down throughout the entire corner. So I believe in terms of tire wear, what Greg is doing is better. I mean, he's entering high, he's slowly drifting down, whereas Eckrich, he's entering low, he's keeping that car pinched, and you got to think he's really raising the temps on those right sides. But I mean, he's doing it for a reason. He's doing it because right now it's fast, and if he can get around the number 2 and get in clean air, then who cares how much he wore out his tires? Who cares how hot the tires are? He's got that clean air, he's got the lead, and he might be able to make something of it. As he almost puts the bumper to the number 2, this is it. He is now there. He's going to get to the inside, going into turn 1, door to door, working their way through the center, and he is clear. Can the number 2, Greg Evans, strike back? No, he's going to fall in line in second. We got a new leader, Scott Eckrich.
From the pole to shotgun on the field, back to the lead. That's an impressive run for the 70. Come up through the field like that, and not even a scratch on the car. That's very rare to see someone start at the back here at Richmond and work their way up. It's taken him about 115 laps to make it back to the front of the field, but he did it without putting a scratch on the car, and he definitely had to avoid a couple incidents the entire way through.
Absolutely. Now, I've broadcasted another league with 3Wide TV, and in that league they had a challenge where the pole sitter had the option to go to the back of the pack, and if they did that, and then they won the race from the back, there was a monetary reward. Now, obviously, this league does not do that bounty or that reward, but it's just something to point out that that's basically what Eckrich has done with no financial incentive. He got the pole, he went to the back of the pack, and 180 or 120 some odd laps later, he's right back out front. So what a phenomenal run, and that's a scary sight. I mean, I think now that he's out front, now that Eckrich has that clean air, no more traffic to navigate, no more cars to pass, I think it's going to be tough for anybody to do anything with him. Yeah,
it definitely is. The only thing I think they can do at this point is we see the 70 and the 2 have really started to gap the 63 car now. I think the 63 was burning his stuff up, trying to keep the 70 behind him. And that's one thing Scott's really good at. Thinking back to all the races I've run against him before, all the races we watched this season, he might just sit behind you and make you overthink what you're doing, and it's going to cause you to burn your tires off. Well, he's just sitting back there almost laughing at you just because he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows that as soon as your tires are burned off, he's going to go by. And I think you saw the 2-car, Greg Evans really didn't put up a fight. I think Greg knew what was going to happen and just said, you know what, I'll let you go. Let me see if I can pull my stuff back off, and let me see if I can make a run later on in the race.
Absolutely. I mean, he might have fallen back to second now, and Scott Eckrich may be pulling away, but these things are never done until they're done. You know, the race is not over till that checkered flag flies, and until then, I mean, we got 79 more laps, and on any one of those laps, anything could happen. We could get another caution flag. We could get, lap traffic that comes into play. Literally any number of circumstances that could really shake things up. So things are looking good for Scott Eckrich, but it's not over yet. He's got to keep his head above the water, and he's got to keep on going. And Johnny Avila continuing just to drop back a little bit. And again, we've talked how Johnny Avila, he's got that short run speed. He's really, really fast on the short run, and this is the downside of that. This is kind of what happens when a short run driver gets put into these longer runs. I mean, he's just starting to fall into the clutches of the field behind him. I mean, Drew Carroll in the 27, he's caught up to him. He's going to be making a move before too long, I would think. And Thomas George is not far behind Drew Carroll back there in 5th. So not doing the best job of tire conservation, but that, again, it doesn't mean that he's out of this event. If we got a late race caution, I'd still put every cent I own on Johnny Avila.
Absolutely, especially with, like you said, late race, 20 laps to go. Put your money on 63. That's the place you're going to want to be. He's not afraid to make a move, and at this point, he's got nothing to lose. He's got his ticket punched to the next round. He nothing to lose. Why not make another move? Why not try to make it just that much harder for everyone else to advance? Obviously, you don't want to wreck anybody, but if you pick up your second win in 2 races, that's one more free spot you've taken away from someone else.
Absolutely, and right now, with the amount of lap traffic that they're about to start getting into, I mean, we're getting into that stage in the run where we're going to start seeing some lap traffic. They're going to have to deal with a lot. The leader is going to have to deal with that probably more than anybody else, because when you're one of those lap cars, you don't want to go a lap down. You're going to fight that leader tooth and nail, but if second place comes up on you after the leader, well, I'm already a lap down. Why am I going to fight this guy? I'm not. I'm going to move over. I'm going to let him go. And so sometimes at these short tracks, that lap traffic can be the equalizer. And that's something Eckrich is going to be getting involved in pretty shortly. But luckily, he's built himself up a buffer for when that does happen. He's up to 1.6 seconds advantage over Greg Evans and nearly 4 seconds over Johnny Avila. So an impressive run so far. A lot of speed out of that machine. And we're getting to the point now where I think pretty soon the tire wear is going to plateau. It's going to stop falling off eventually and just kind of even out at a certain point. And once that happens, I think that even further puts the cards in the hand of Eckrich.
Yeah, absolutely. Once those tires plateau out, there's really no way to run someone back down, especially if you guys are so even, like 2 and the 70 normally are. I mean, obviously the 70 has been able to extend his lead almost to just over a second now, but once the tires completely plateau out, I don't see it being very easy for anybody to chase the 70 car back down. Unless a caution comes out like you mentioned, or maybe even green flag pit stops. I don't think you guys need to make a pit stop at this point in time. I think they're good to go on fuel. But if you start getting into some really bad tire wear, the 84 just scrub the wall just a little bit, you might think about coming down pit road.
Well, I'm not too sure they're good on pit or on fuel there, Jordan, because according to our broadcasting notes, AJ said it's tough to predict, but 104 to 113 laps, roughly. Now, our caution was about lap 80, would you say?
Yeah, I believe they pitted on lap 80.
So that would put them roughly 7 laps beyond their fuel range. They'd have to do a little bit of saving if they wanted to make it from here on out. And even if they do make it on fuel and they saved all of their fuel and they were able to coast to the line, they're still putting an extra 10 or 15 laps on these tires that they otherwise wouldn't on a normal run. And a lot of these guys probably aren't entirely sure how these cars are going to handle on 114-lap old tires. That's just another unknown. So I think some of these guys could make it to the end. I think you're right. But the question is, do they want to? I mean, would they be able to make up the time on fresh tires, or can they even save enough? It seems to be a bit of a question mark right now, at least for us in the booth, and I would imagine some of these drivers are probably running some calculations in their mind as well, trying to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want to end up as the first car on pit road, and what I referred to earlier this year is the 27 car curse, the number I had at the beginning of the season. You go on pit road and you're one of the first drivers on pit road, and a caution comes out and you get trapped a lap down. We saw it happen last week to Scott Eckrich, not once, but I believe twice. And it just ruins your night. That's not something you want to do. These guys don't want to be the first car on pit road. So you want to run as long as you physically can, but you don't want to run into that caution cycle if that happens while you're pitting, because any advantage you might have just tried to gain, you've thrown it out the window completely.
Absolutely. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I've always been partial to a longer run strategy in terms of the green flag runs, because that is my biggest fear, man, is getting trapped a lap down, especially at a short track, as we do have a taker down pit road, and it was the number 15. I'm a little bit behind on that. I do apologize, but the 15 did make his way down pit road, and he got that car service. So one driver opting to pit. And I'll tell you what, one thing I'm noticing, Jordan, I've been watching this scoring pylon, and I'm seeing one driver in particular slowly climb his way towards the top, and that is Brian Yaczik. Last time we talked about him, he was back there in 9th, and he was just barely holding on to the top 10. But over the last few laps, well, he got around Allan Young. A few laps later, he got around Will Warstler. Now he's up in 6th, and he's closing the gap to Thomas George. There's something that Brian has found on this long run, and right now he is incredibly fast. I've
noticed that as the season's worn on, week in and week out, you might not see the 55 up front in qualifying. You might not see him up front in the first 100 laps. Heck, you might not see him up front in the first 75 laps of the race, but all of a sudden, when it comes to the end of it, almost like Kevin Harvick, Mr. Where did he come from? Look up on the top 5 in the closing laps of the race, and the 55 is right there.
Absolutely. I believe it was it Michigan where it was towards the tail end of the race. We had a late race restart, and Yaczik was just kind of, he was there. Like, we hadn't really talked about him all race long, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, look, there's the 55, and he got a really good finish that week. And you're right, man. He is just like Kevin Harvick, Mr. Where did he come from? Brian Yaczik in that 55. He's one of those drivers that just surprises you. You know, sometimes he just comes out here and he just turns it on at the most random points in the race. You know, 100 laps in, all of a sudden he just finds that speed, and it's incredible to watch every time. So he's having a great run for that number 55. And I think if this green flag run goes on, well, I mean, this is his bread and butter. This long run's treating him kindly. He may pick up a few more positions.
He absolutely could, as we see him starting to close in the gap just a little bit on the 88 of Thomas George. And Brian's another one of those drivers. He's had a little bit of trouble the last few weeks. Looks to be having a good run right now. He's just on the outside of the playoff bubble. He needs to have a good run tonight and needs to get momentum into the next round, as we're off next week, obviously, for, I believe, week 13. This league always takes the 13th week off every 13 weeks just because of the new build and everything that comes out. But you want to have that momentum built up. That way, when you come back into the next round or even the next race, you don't have to worry so much about where do I got to finish. You can kind of just go out and run your own race and hopefully collect enough points to continue your way on.
Absolutely. You want to make sure you have that momentum, and especially coming after a break. You know, sometimes you take a week off and you come back and you got to knock the rust off. You feel a little bit out of your element. You take a week off, and if you got momentum from your previous race, that kind of helps to knock that rust off a little bit quicker, keep yourself a little bit more on the ball. So definitely Yaczik looking for a great run tonight, and he's found it. I mean, like I said, running up in P6, you can't complain about that, especially when he's continuing to run down Thomas George in that 88 every corner. He's just getting a little bit closer, and that 55 car is treating him right on these long runs. So curious to see what he can do as this race goes on, and that thumbs up cancer down number 55. But for now, pretty much everybody's kind of single filed out. I think we've kind of all found everybody's lot in the race. As Eckrich has a moment there with Woody Mahan. Looks like Woody is going to go around him on the bottom. I believe Woody is among the drivers who have pitted, and that's the reason that he's going to get around our leader. So here's the question. You know, we see a lot of these drivers pitting. This tells me that a lot of them aren't confident that they can make it, or at the very least, they're confident that fresh tires are worth more time than what they would save by not pitting. So if you're Greg Evans or you're Johnny Avila, who have fallen quite a ways back, do you risk this short stop strategy on the leaders or the cars ahead of you and risk getting put laps down should a caution come out to try and make up this deficit that you've acquired?
If I'm Johnny Avila, I think I'm going to try it. Like I said, he's got nothing to lose. He's already won in this round. He can continue on. Basically, as long as he starts next week or in 2 weeks at the Roval, he'll move on to the next round. I'm going to try it, see if I can squeak a win out of it. if I'm the 2 of Greg Evans, I've got to try to follow the 70. You got to try to beat him on the track. You can't really try to beat him on strategy, because if you try to beat him on strategy, you could run into one of those situations where the caution comes out, you're lap down. Yeah, you've completely thrown yourself out of the mix completely.
And that would be a horrible points day for the number 2 if he were to get trapped laps down. Because, I mean, really look at the scoring pylon. We only have, if he went a lap down, that would put him back in 16th. We've got 15 cars on the lead lap still at the 150. I'm bad at math, but we got 53 to go, and we still got 15 cars on the lead lap. So he would be really out of the points picture for tonight at least. And that's not what he wants. He wants that momentum. He wants to have a good run. So I think you're right. If you're the number 2, your only option is to beat him on the track, do whatever he does. But you're right. When it comes to Johnny Avila, he's got that win. He's got his ticket punched to next week, week after next, and he can afford to try some different things. And the thing about Johnny is he's a thinking driver. He's one of those drivers who's not afraid to try different strategies, to do different things. As the camera pans back, we've got Drew Carroll still trying to get to the 63. Hasn't quite got there yet. Didn't really have the momentum I expected him to have, but he's still running real strong there in 4th. This looks like a bit of a battle. We got Brian Yaczik and Allan Young. So now Allan has caught up to this 55 as we go on to the hood cam. And these guys are going to be duking it out for track position. And I think track position is pretty important going into a green flag pit sequence here because, that was a close call coming onto pit road, but it looks like Thomas George and Johnny Avila have come down pit road. So you called it, Jordan. He can afford to try some crazy strategies. There it is.
Absolutely, there it is. He brings the 80 at Thomas George down with him, and Thomas is one of those drivers just outside the playoff bubble. He needs to have a good run. So if you're outside looking in, it's also not a bad strategy. We saw the 15 at Grant Brown try. He's at the bottom of the barrel right now. You got to try everything you can, and if being on track isn't working and you're outside looking in, why not try to pit early? Why not try to see if you can create something to happen?
Absolutely. Now, watching this battle between the 55 and the 24, I noticed the 55 got a little loose when the 24 closed in behind him in the corner. So I got to ask you, Jordan, is this one of the tracks where the aero package kind of allows for taking the air off your competition if you get too close? Can you get somebody a little sideways without even touching them?
Oh, absolutely you can. Just the little itty-bitty spoiler that's on the back of these cars right now. You need all the air on it you can absolutely get. And if someone gets up on your back bumper, it takes all that air away. But that little itty-bitty spoiler becomes almost non-existent, and you better hang on tight.
And hang on, that 55 had to do. I mean, he got really sideways a couple times there, but still holding on to P4 as they run, and Eckrich continuing to stay on the track as Adam Jurski is going to join those who have decided to pit, making his way down this pit road. And Eckrich just continuing to stay out. I got to wonder if anybody's going to be the mad lad who tries to stay out and really conserve enough fuel to make it. I really don't see any of these guys doing it, but I feel like it would be theoretically possible.
They definitely could make it happen. Watching the lap times, I haven't seen anyone really start to try to save enough to maybe show they're going to try it, but maybe they're waiting for more cars to pit, trying to get as big of a buffer as they possibly can. But if you're going to start saving and try to make it, you've got to start now. If you wait too long, you're going to use up too much fuel, and it's just not going to be possible. It's going to be almost counterintuitive.
Absolutely. As here goes Allan Young down to the bottom lane. He is right on the number 55, side by side, coming out of turn 2. Gets a little bit sideways. That costs him some momentum as Greg Evans, our second place runner, makes his way down pit road, as well as Drew Carroll. And so that basically, among our leaders, only leaves Scott Eckrich to come down pit road. Allan Young and Brian Yaczik still battling for position. Now, in this situation, if you're Brian Yaczik, I'm not sure I want to be up there. I'm not sure I want to be battling up on the high side, because if I have to pit and I'm trapped up high, well, I have no way to get down to pit road. So hopefully these guys get it sorted out pretty quick.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to try to single file as quickly as you possibly can. As our producer just said, the 70 Scott Eckrich now makes his way down to pit road. If I'm the 55, I'm the 24. Well, you want to get the point for leading a lap. You also want to get down to pit road as soon as you possibly can at this point. Now all the leaders are going to start coming around with fresh tires. You don't want to be a sitting duck on the track, because you're just going to start losing positions.
Yeah, you do not want to stay out too much longer once everybody else has. I mean, there's a lot of different strategies you can play, but at some point, once everybody else is pitted and everybody else has made their call, it kind of forces your hand. It kind of makes it so you can't really reasonably stay out much longer once everybody else has. And Brian Yaczik is going to come down pit road. A little bit sideways, a little bit heavy on the momentum, nearly getting into the sand barrels there. We've got a caution flag. Now, what does this mean for Brian Yaczik? Because he was in pit road when this happened.
If I'm Brian Yaczik, I am staying on the loud pedal as long as I possibly can down pit road. You do not want to stop as we see the replay come up right here. Looks like the number 43 and the number 14 coming off of the corner. The 43 just trying to stay off his teammate, the 14. Hard into the backstretch wall. But yeah, if I'm Brian Yaczik, I'm not stopping down pit road. There's a bunch of cars that are trapped a lap down. Not the most ideal situation, but the way the pit sequence happened right there, it's going to be able to work out enough for him.
I'm just theorizing, but I think what we might have saw there with the 43 is the difference between old tires and new tires. You know, you drive around on old tires long enough, you get used to it, you get complacent, and then you put fresh tires on, and suddenly the car is so much looser, so much more free. You almost forget how it handles on fresh tires after a while, and it's easy to make a little bit of a mistake once you get that stark, abrupt difference between fresh and old tires. And I think that might be what happened, because he came out of turn 2, and that thing was just completely sideways. Apparently our lucky dog is Scott Eckrich, which means he was one lap down at the time of caution. That's a huge, huge thing. I mean, he's got to get through lucky dog starts at the tail end of the field. He's got to do what he did at the start of the race all over again.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the pit sequence here as everything gets straightened out with all the lap cars and everything, and see where Brian Yaczik comes out. Looks like he now back down on pit road right now behind everybody. So looks like it did hurt him a little bit more than we thought it would initially. And it's just going to be interesting to see who's still a lap down, who's where, what's going to happen with everybody else at this point.
And one benefactor to that, Johnny Avila. I think he was back on the lead lap when that all happened. So that's going to put him in a really good position for this restart. And if our timing and scoring is to be believed, he is the current leader. So he's going to be in clean air pretty much for the first time all race long. This is a huge break for Johnny Avila. We don't have that many laps left. If Eckrich is going to close this gap and get up to him, man, he's going to have to do it quick. But we know that the 63 has that short run speed. So this really could go either direction.
Yeah, it absolutely could. The only thing that might save the 70 of Scott Eckrich is if there's a bunch of cars that have to take the wave around. I do believe the wave around cars have to start behind the lucky dog, so he might get a little bit of a break there. I believe there's a lot of cars here. If we look at the timing and scoring, if we see the 63 of Johnny Avila, he's only 4 cars ahead of Scott Eckrich right now. Everybody in front of the 63 is going to have to take a wave around, so that might be the 70's only saving grace right now.
It's definitely a huge help to have these guys have to take that wave around, have to start behind you. I mean, he's not out of it. You know, we've seen him pass a lot of cars tonight. And so, yeah, I mean, things might look a little grim at the moment, but with the amount of passes he's made, who's to say he's not going to pass a few more? You know what I mean? It's going to be an absolute fireworks show of him just hustling to get back up front. And Johnny Avila, I'm curious to see what he can do in clean air. We know he's fast. He's had a great car all night long, and he's been in dirty air all night long. Now he's finally got that chance to have the car handling at its most optimal, at its peak. And if he can use that speed and pull away a little bit, well, that's going to be pretty big as well. I mean, look at Allan Young and AJ Digby, currently respectively second and third. You know, these are drivers that were both involved in incidents earlier in the night, and they're going to be starting towards the front of the pack. So that one caution has done so much to just shuffle this field and completely change the picture of this event. Absolutely it has. We see the pace car ducking off. The wave around car starting to catch up. This is going to be a little bit interesting. They're really strung out. A lot of cars up to full speed as looks like the caution comes back out right at the last second. The race control decided that was too much of a start, so they're going to bunch them back up, get everyone tucked back in line, let all the wave around cars catch back up. I kind of thought that that might be the case, that they're going to extend it maybe one lap, try to let everyone catch out. And yeah, that's I think that was a great call by the admins. When I saw all those wave around cars go around, it really looked like they were going to be catching up to this field like at speed while they were still trying to gain momentum. And that could have been a lot of chaos. I think they made the right call. That would have been a very scary restart for a lot of drivers. So to give them another lap to get racked up and stacked up, and as we do have it delayed one more time, looks like Eckrich had a black flag of some sort. It was just cleared by the admins as the pace truck is going to give the drivers a heart attack there, driving through them. We now have 1 to green. It looks like the number 15 pulled up alongside Eckrich. And Eckrich does not have as much ground to make up as we thought, Jordan. He's going to be starting inside row 3. And, of course, the number 63, Johnny Avila, he's inside row 1, the control car. Man, lap 166 out of 200. The clock is ticking. Eckrich is he's got a little bit more pressure than Avila. Avila's got his ticket punched, like you said, but Scott Eckrich, he's coming off of a rather disappointing week last week. So how hard is he going to push it? Well, we're going to find out as the pace truck makes that hard left turn. Where does Johnny Avila start the field? He's going to start before they even get out of the corner, and it's a huge jump for him. He's going to lead A.J. Digby and Allan Young into turn 1. Eckrich wasting no time, going 3 wide into turn 1. 14 right in the middle, the 70 down low. A little bit sideways out of the corner. That's going to give the momentum advantage to A.J. Digby in the 14. 14 is going to come down in front of him, throw a little bit of a block there, say, hey, I'm not going to let you by that easy. Here comes Eckrich again, striking on the low line, trying to get a little bit of a side draft down the straightaway. Side by side again in the corner. Can he pinch it to the bottom? Yes, he can. It's a beautiful move by Eckrich. And just like that, that moment to breathe that Avila had, it's dissipated, Jordan.
That it definitely has. The only time he really had to breathe was you see the 70 try the outside on Avila. He's going to march right around on the outside. That's the first time we've really seen that outside group come to life, and come to life it did as the 70 just went right around the outside of him.
I mean, he passed him like he was standing still. That 70 car is just booking it right now. Brian Yaczik also trying to make his way around A.J. Digby, and that's going to put Yaczik in the podium for the first time tonight, under green at least. And what a charge to the front it has been for Yaczik, just slowly gaining momentum all night long, as now he is on the bumper of Avila, trying to figure out how am I going to get around this guy. Well, here we go. Looks like we got a wreck in the back of the pack. I'm hearing Stone and... Oh, no, and now I'm being told to ignore what I've heard. So I don't know what reality is anymore. Nothing is real. Birds aren't real. The government's probably not real either. But what I do know is real is the lead that the 70 has. He is continuing to put away a little bit, largely at the hands of Brian Yaczik, who has held up everybody behind the leader by just working them over. I mean, Yaczik was able to get around the 63. He got around the 14. He is charging towards that number 70 in the lap time differential. Brian Yaczik ran a 21.8 last time around, and our leader ran a 21.8 as well. So the number 55, the only car on track right now that is the same pace as Eckrich.
Talk about seizing the moment. A perfectly timed caution almost. It could have come a few minutes sooner for him before he had to bail down pit road, but making the best out of a situation that he had almost handed to him. The 55 of Brian Yaczik running P2 right now. This is his best run we've seen all season. I think this is the highest we've seen him all season. I think we've had him finish P3 a couple times, but P2 trying to chase down the 70 car and maybe punch his ticket tonight.
Absolutely. If he can keep this momentum up, he's got a shot at it. I mean, we're on lap 174 out of 200, so we've got roughly 27 laps remaining in this event. Not a whole lot of time, but it's enough to make something happen, and that comes up to answer down Ford. Coming through 3 and 4, they're going to continue running nearly identical lap times, identical lines, and identical lap times. I think Yaczik has been watching Scott. He's been learning from the lines he's running, and man, that information has been nothing short of invaluable, as he has really just been, again, gaining momentum all night long. As this night has progressed, that car has just gotten faster. Yazzik's gotten more consistent, and it's been one heck of a night for the driver of that 55. And behind him, let's take a quick look through the field. As you know, I feel like I maybe haven't done the best job of giving the entire field enough love tonight, but we do have Greg Evans back there in 4th. Johnny Avila fell back to 5th. A.J. Digby now making a move for 5th on Avila, but a little bit further back we got Thomas George, Drew Carroll. Tyler Saville still running P9, and I got to tell you, I think one of the biggest surprises for me tonight is Tyler Saville in that number 11. We always see him running up front. We always see him being one of the contenders for the lead. And tonight, it's not that he's having a bad run. I mean, a top 10 is a good night, but it just seems like there's something off with that 11 car. There's just something about this setup that's not really vibing with him, as he's just kind of been haunting that 9th position and not really able to get much further up, but not really falling back either.
Yeah, this seems to be one of the tracks that the more I think back, the more the 11 car doesn't really come to mind here at Richmond. Is one of those tracks he doesn't struggle at necessarily, but isn't lights out like he is at some of the other tracks on the schedule. He's just kind of here. He's doing what he needs to do, clicking off laps, making sure he's there at the end, gain as many points as physically possible. It'd be interesting to see what he thinks about this track. I don't think I've ever talked to Tyler about what he feels about this place. A lot of drivers say they really do like it, and others say that they really don't. But like I said, he seems to be, when it comes to running here, he seems to be neutral all the time. So it'd be interesting to see what he really does think about this place.
Absolutely. And looking a little bit further back through the grid, we've got kind of a 3-car gaggle from 13th back to 15th. Troy Haight is running at P13 in that number 28 machine, right ahead of Grant Brown, who unfortunately, as good of a run as he was having, that yellow flag really shoveled him back through the order. Now he's running in 14th, right ahead of Woody Mahan in the 15th position, driving that number 84 Mahan Speed Laboratories machine, also sponsored by Splash and Go Graphics. Woody Mahan, I feel like he's been struggling with this track. We were watching him in practice, and it just seemed like that car was just trying to get away from him. You know, the rear end was not staying planted underneath him. But he's done a great job keeping the car underneath him in the actual race itself. You know, he hasn't really got involved in any incidents. Maybe not fueling the track that much, but he's doing what he needs to do to make sure he's still in this event and keeping that car clean. And, of course, a little bit further back, we got Corey Benton, who is a lap down. Well, actually, maybe 2 laps down. But, yeah, just a lot of single file. All these drivers doing a good job keeping their cars under them, making sure they're still in the race. And right now, it's just the Scott Eckrich show as he continues to pull away.
That he definitely does. Give props to Brian Yaczik, though. He's really doing his best to stay right with him. I figured when Scott got out front, he'd start marching away to a lead that he had before, and he's really only got a second on Brian Yaczik right now. Also, props to Allan Young. We saw him get in that incident early on today, and he's hanging in in P3 right in front of Greg Evans, and that's no small feat, especially after you were facing the wrong direction on lap 1. He really good run out of the 24 car.
Absolutely. Allan Young has really picked it up. It's funny. Sometimes you see drivers that, you know, all night long they've been running towards the back, and then they kind of get an opportunity up front because of a caution or some sort of circumstance, and you see them just kind of fall right back down through the grid. But Allan Young, he goes to show. You give him the right track position, you give him a good car, and he can do something with it. You know, he's up here running in the podium. He's not letting Yaczik get away from him, and he's turning some really impressive laps. Allan Young just seizing this opportunity that he was given and doing a fantastic job of it.
That he absolutely is, and I just looked at the points that I was given before the race even started, and you see the 55 of Brian Yaczik, the 24 of Allan Young, the 88 of Thomas George, all running in the top 10. They're all drivers who are below the cut line right now. They're all drivers that are doing exactly what they need to do to try to gain as many points as physically possible to have a shot going into next week. You look at drivers like Grant Brown, unfortunately, he's, like I mentioned, bottom of the barrel on the points. He's going to be in a win or die situation next week going into the Roval, and that's really not a position you want to be in, unfortunately. 2 weeks, as my producer mentioned, we were off next week. You don't want to be in that situation if you're the 15 car, especially going into a road course where the road courses have been dominated by 2 guys all season long. So you don't want to be in the situation the 15's in. You mentioned before he was having a really good run, doing the best he could to get the points, and an untimely caution really put a fork in his day.
Yeah, going into a road course with unstable footing is never something you want to do. Even if you're really good at road courses and you really feel comfortable at them and you tend to do well, road courses are unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen, and they're so punishing, especially on iRacing where we don't have full course cautions at road courses. You know, you make one mistake, and if you're in a precarious point situation, that could be the end of your playoff hopes. I mean, it's a rough thing to go into these road courses and not have a bit of a points cushion to fall back on should anything go awry. So a lot of these drivers right now, this is kind of like do or die. They got to go now. They got to build up that points cushion now because they can't put their cards or their chips all in on the road course. You just can't do that.
No, you definitely can't. It's definitely not a position anyone wants to be in, unless you're maybe Scott Eckrich. I mean, he is one of the drivers that really do like the road courses, so maybe that's a position he wouldn't mind being in. But right now, as we see him setting sail out front with just over a second of a lead on the 55 of Brian Yaczik, it's looking like that's not going to be a problem for him going into next week.
No, it doesn't look like it will be. And man, this is an intense battle for the podium between the number 24 and the 2. These guys have been turning nearly identical lap times, Allan Young and Greg Evans. And these drivers with only 9 to go, I mean, both of them trying to get every last point they can get. Greg Evans probably feeling a little bit slighted by the way the cautions fell and the way that everything kind of shuffled him back through the running order despite how good his car has been and how fast he's been. So you know he's driving motivated right now as he dives into the corner, trying to close in on that 24. But again, I can't overstate how great of a job that number 24 Allan Young has done. I mean, to go from being involved in one of the first incidents of the night to being up here in the podium and not only being in the podium, but defending that podium from the current series champion. What a career night it's been for Allan Young.
Absolutely, it has been. And Allan's one of those drivers we documented throughout the season. Hasn't had the best luck. Has gotten caught up in a lot of incidents that haven't been his doing. I can't even pinpoint a time that he even got a caution strike that said a requisite. Probably seemed to get a little loose coming off of turn number 4. Just been caught up in everybody else's mess all season long. To see him run P3 here at Richmond, it's really a feel-good story for him.
Absolutely, but not without pressure as the 2 is closing in a little bit there. And on your screen right there, that's another battle developing. Here we go, on board with the number 11, Tyler Saville, looking to pick up another track position from the 27 if he can. Looks high, doesn't quite work out. He's going to go back down towards the bottom. And we're going to go to the multi-cam. 1 camera on board, 1 camera from the third person. Oh, nope. Okay, top camera is now focusing on the 24. Yep, now we're back to the 27. We're going all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. Our cameras are, you know, we want to show you everything, even if it's for just a moment. As the number 11 continuing to stalk that 27. 2 very evenly matched drivers, I'd have to say, Jordan. I mean, when you look at the number 11 and the number 27, both these drivers, Drew Carroll and Tyler Saville, incredibly talented drivers. And I've noticed they both tend to have the same sort of skill sets. You know, the tracks that one's good at, the other is also good at. You know, where one falters, the other sort of falters. And I think that's fixing to make this battle quite interesting, as now the 24 has a little bit more pressure from the 2. That gap has diminished. And with only 3 to go, he's going to have to make 3 more perfect laps, as the number 2 actually scraped the wall a little bit there. I think that tells you how hard that number 2 is pushing that car.
Greg is giving everything he possibly can and then some out of that 2 car, trying to get every point he possibly can. If he gets enough points tonight, he can solidify himself into the next round just on points, even if he has a bad week next week or 2 weeks at the Roval. As you mentioned before, my cameras, I keep focusing on the 24 and the 2, and I got my own feed on the 11 and the 27. It's amazing how close these 2 battles are. This late in the run, we see looks like the white flag's out for the 70 of Scott Eckrich. It's just amazing. This late in the run, these 2 battles are this close. Anyone can take it, even going into the last couple corners.
Absolutely. Through the final corner for the final time, there was some 2 wide lap traffic ahead of Scott Eckrich, but it's not going to be an issue for him. He's going to cross the line, and he is going to win here at Richmond for the event here at the Sim Racers Club. What a showing by Scott Eckrich from the front of the pack, the back of the pack, the front again, to the middle of the pack, and then back to the front again. What a race it's been. Brian Yaczik with an impressive second place rally, and Allan Young is barely going to hold on to that third place from Greg Evans and get himself a podium here at a short track. There's Scott Eckrich. He's going to burn it down to the ground if he can. There we go. That's a burnout, ladies and gentlemen. That is a burnout. Yeah, he can, not only can he drive fast, but he can do really cool burnouts. He's going all the way down the straightaway, Jordan.
One of his signature burnouts, he likes to talk about it, the straight line down the front stretch, and it's pretty impressive to see. If you've ever tried this on iRacing, it's not easy to do, and he makes it look like a cakewalk every time he does it.
All the way down the straightaway. There's the striped lines for the corner entry. But is he going to stop there, or is he going to take it around the corner? Let's find out. Looks like he's taking it around the corner, Jordan. How do you do that? What?
There we go.
There it is. What a burnout. Oh, man. All right. Well, his signature celebration is over. We're going to wait for some of these drivers to get in the waiting room. We're going to have a word with them. And while we wait for them, we'll go through our final running order real quick. Of course, Scott Eckrich taking the win. Brian Yaczik second, Allan Young third. Greg Evans bringing it home fourth after an impressive night and a lot of laps led. AJ Digby rallying from that early incident all the way up to the top 5. Great run for the driver, the number 14. Johnny Avila finishing P6. A good points night that he didn't necessarily need. His ticket was punched. He didn't have to come out here and do well, but he did anyways because he's Johnny Avila and he always does well. Drew Carroll bringing it home at P7. Tyler Saville, P8. Thomas George, P9. Will Warstler is going to round out our top 10, and I'll hand it on to you for the top 10 back.
P11th is going to be the 69 Adam Jurski, the 72 of Michael Chrobok is going to finish 12th. Quiet night for the 72 and the 69, both playoff drivers. Troy Hate's going to finish 13th. Woody Mahan 14th. Grant Brown, one of the playoff drivers we touched on, last car in the lead lap is going to finish 15th. Kevin Stone will be 16th. Tim Knott 17th. John Eckert will be 18th. Corey Benton 19th, and Richard Fletcher will finish the top 20.
And just rounding out the rest of the field, you got Mark Myers, Jamie Moore, Pete Baskins, and Jeff Ward. Now we got our drivers in the waiting room, so we're going to go ahead and have a word with them. We'll go third to first. Let's see if we can get them in here. Allan Young, you got a copy?
Loud and clear.
Allan, you had one heck of a run tonight. You were kind of marred back in the pack early on in the race, but that caution came out late and it put you a little bit further towards the front. You took that opportunity and you made the most of it. You not only held on to the podium, but you defended it from the defending series champion, Greg Evans. Tell me a little bit about your run tonight.
Oh, started off pretty good. Decent qualifying effort. Completely driver error at the beginning of the race. Spun myself out, and I knew it was going to be an uphill battle the rest of the night. From driving up from 24th up inside the top 10, I think, before that first caution, or the third caution, when we pitted. It was definitely a night I'm tickled to death, especially after the year I've had. It's been an uphill battle all year. We've been struggling. I'm not going to lie about it. This year's been just horrible for me, especially after last year. But to come away with a top 3 after this race tonight, it feels good.
Absolutely, and again, it was a phenomenal run. Now, towards the end of that race, of course, you had Greg Evans closing in, getting a little bit bigger in your mirror every lap as the laps wound down. How nerve-wracking was that, if at all?
It was a little nerve-wracking. I was horrible on the short runs, which I wish we had probably another 10 laps or so. I think I would have had something for Scott and Brian, but when Greg got to my bumper, I overdrove it a couple times, and I knew I had to settle back down. And I had my team in my ear telling me, just stay steady, easy off, easy in. And I just kind of went back to what I was doing all night and ended up driving back away from him. So.
All right. Well, congratulations on your podium. Before we let you go, is there anybody that you would like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, I got to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast. My sponsors, FSM Customs, Young Gun Creations for this awesome looking car, LA Sim Sport, all the guys over there, they've never given up on me this whole year. And all my competitors, what a race tonight.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Allan.
Thank you.
That was your third place finisher, Allan Young, driver of the number 24. Now we got Jordan Harnish. He's down in pit road. He's going to have a word with our second place finisher, Brian Yaczik.
Brian Yaczik, welcome to the 3Y booth. You got a copy, bud?
Yes, hello.
Brian Yaczik, an impressive second place run. Finally, looks like you got the internet issues straightened out over the last couple of weeks. Walk us through your night.
Well, the biggest thing was once we got past 10 o'clock, then we could start celebrating, so that was kind of fun. No, it was a pretty good night for the for our loud pedal throwback. We made the executive decision on the way to the racetrack to keep the paint scheme because it won best in show, so I had to brag about it a little bit, show it off. But it wasn't a fun practice. I thought we were going to be in for a long night, but it ended up working out real nice for us because really to take care of the right rear and not drag the right front with it. And I kind of like places like that you have to take care of both sides, or both front and rear. And then it would just kind of get lucky with that one caution. Had I pitted a lap sooner, the whole night would have been for naught. So a little bit of luck and some good run, and that's max points for what we could get tonight. And that's important.
Absolutely, definitely important. You mentioned the max points after another rough week. You mentioned after last week with the 10 o'clock internet woes. It's definitely good to see you make it through that 10 o'clock spot. Walk us through that pit sequence under green, the last pit sequence when the caution came out just as you were coming onto pit road. What was going through your mind?
A lot of panic. I really didn't know what the right thing to do was. I didn't know if I needed to pit and stop, but then I was afraid to get trapped a lap down, so I just kind of just rolled through pit road, and I figured, okay, I'm at least, in sync with the pace car. So I couldn't pit the first time, so I thought I was a lap down, but then it cycled back around. And I said, okay, everything's all right, and move forward. But I thought about it probably 2 laps prior about coming in, and I thought, I'll just let it run a little bit longer. And then I was going to let it run even longer, and I think I got loose and said, all right, screw it. I got my lap led. Let's go on in there and pit. But yeah, a lot of panic on the radio when that unfolded.
I can imagine. Well, absolutely a great run for you. Good to see you rebound and finish P2. Who's someone you want to thank going into the next round?
Just the biggest thing I've been able to rep. I got a really cool thumbs up cancer down car, and I don't get luck. Just haven't had the finishes to support it. Thumbs up cancer down is a great charity out of California, Bakersfield area. Go look them up. Thumbs up cancer down. Do some Googlings, Twittering, whatever you need to do. Go look it up. They do wonderful things for people, with cancer and cancer care. A lot of creature comforts that you wouldn't expect to think about, like cell phone chargers, shampoos, deodorants, for people with extended stays, they kind of put these packages together. It's really, really a really, really great foundation. So I'm really happy to finally get to talk about them. Because it's very near and dear. And Jason Galvin, a dear friend of mine, turned me on to them a little while ago, and they're a fantastic charity. Go ahead, go look them up, and just check them out. See the good work that they do. Sim racing apps, Midwest Simulation. All of our friends and partners, graphics. I'm sure I'm missing probably 1 or 2 of them, but Nick Cohan for this famous paint scheme now that went down in lore as the throwback king. So we'll take it, head on down the road to the Roval and see what we can do there.
Well, awesome run tonight. Congratulations on your second place finish, and good luck in 2 weeks at the Roval.
Thank you, sir.
And that was your runner-up, Brian Yaczik. Very excited to get a good run tonight. And he mentioned his paint scheme. It was a very good-looking car. I agree there. Beautiful car. And again, great cause. Thumbs up, cancer down. All right, now we're going to have a word with our race winner, Scott Eckrich, in the number 70. Scott Eckrich, you got a copy?
Yep.
Scott, I don't know how you do it, man. You get the pole, you go to the back of the pack, you drive back to the front, caution comes out, now you're starting a little bit further back, but you get right back to the front, and then you win the dang thing. How do you do it?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good track for me tonight. Definitely felt like we had the bottom hooked up really nice, so just felt like we could, drive long, keep the tires on it, and drive to the front there without a whole lot of sweat. But it's just lots of times run at this track.
The experience definitely showed. Now, it seemed like you had a lot of long run speed in that car that a lot of the competition maybe didn't have. Do you think that was maybe part of the key to winning this race, was just kind of keeping the tire temps down and conserving a little bit?
For sure, especially in those first few laps. I was kind of letting Greg and Johnny kind of, fight it out, and I was gonna pick off whoever the victor was. But no, this track is very, very, very important to save your stuff early in the run, because it's just magnified on the back half of the run. So, you know, as long as you keep the tires under you and you don't slide the fronts getting in or the rear getting out, then you typically tend to have a little more tire than everybody else.
Absolutely. Now, I got to ask you, you did a burnout all the way down the front straightaway and halfway through turn 1. And apparently that's a signature celebration for you. How did that get started?
Boy, I don't even know. Oh, it was when they first added the tire model for the smoke. If you went in a straight line, you couldn't see the burnout smoke, and that annoyed me. So yeah, I figured out if you got the car to a big angle like that, then the smoke would be even more.
That was an impressive burnout. We were having a riot up in the booth watching that. But Scott, again, it was a phenomenal run. I don't think you could have done anything more perfect. We're going into the Roval in 2 weeks. We got an off week coming up next week, and then we're going to the Roval. How do you feel about going to a road course with this momentum you're carrying?
Oh, you know me. I love road courses. We've had some good success this year at them, so I can't wait for the Roval.
Some excitement there for sure. It's going to be a great race. Congratulations on your win. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Sure, I'd like to thank my teammates. I was a little down about last week there, and they talked some sense into me this week, and it got me back out there. So that was definitely a big help to those guys. And then, of course, just everything that they do for the practice sessions and whatnot. It's always super helpful.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Again, congratulations on your win, and hopefully we're talking to you at the Roval under similar circumstances.
Thank you.
And that was your race winner, Scott Eckrich, and that is just about going to do it for our post-race coverage. Jordan, you got any final thoughts?
Man, what a race. Exactly what I thought out coming out of Richmond. Some really good battles out of the top 3, even the whole top 10. Really close all race long. Just absolutely great battles. I can't wait to see what the Roval brings in 2 weeks.
Absolutely, I'd have to agree. I'm Andre Grambush, joined alongside Jordan Harnish and producer Carlos Acosta. And again, big shout out to Carlos for having to deal with all the technical difficulties and working through them and getting it figured out pretty quickly, a lot quicker than I think I probably would have. So he did a great job all night long, and he kept the show going on for you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you in 2 weeks.